Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second half of today's Future Talk. Welcome back also to our guests. We had a short coffee break, and now we go on with our second panel for today. We will talk about this question and more details about how do we inspire future generations to use STEAM education to manage post-pandemic changes. And I have the honor to introduce our four panelists, our experts that all of them are joining us via video call. Oh, and there we have our agenda. And here they are, our panelists from the office or the home office. Hello, Beatrice Booth, chairwoman of the European STEM Coalition. Hello, Mrs. Booth. Also, Günther Koch, the president of Humboldt Cosmos Multiversity. I say hi to Paolo Dal Santo, HP Education Lead EMEA at HP International.
Good afternoon.
And Ms. Lieselot van Gijsel, STEM educator and EU ambassador at GTI Beveren.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So we can hear you, we can see you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
A bit of delay, but that's okay. We have some time. So thanks to all of you for taking time, being part of our Future Talk. A very interesting topic we'd like to focus on in the next 45 minutes. And maybe I start with the first question that I'd like to hand over to Mrs. Boots. So Mrs. Boots, there is no universally accepted definition of STEAM. One say it's the link between STEM and creativity, where the A stands for arts, and others say it's for all other subjects. How should STEAM education be defined from your perspective, from the perspective of the EU STEM Coalition?
Hi, nice to be here. First of all, let me explain shortly what is the EU STEM Coalition.
Yes.
It's a coalition of all kinds of STEM platforms. I'm from the Dutch STEM, National STEM Platform. And there are many platforms like this in Europe, and they all try to promote STEM for young people and older students to choose it, so companies have more people in that area. And so it's a network of and a platform of all kinds of STEM organizations from all across Europe. And this is actually an issue where we talk about a lot, because some people are very strict to keep it STEM. Some people want to make it STEAM, and then is the A arts or is the A all other subjects? That's what our Belgium partners came up with. And what I found is that the real engineering people, the real STEM people say, well, STEM in itself is already very creative. It is about design. It is about making new things, and it could be quite theoretical, it could be more in the making, but so we don't need the A, because STEM in itself is arts enough or creativity enough. But I think when we discuss this a lot with the European Commission, who now talk about STEAM, I think there are a lot of policymakers in Brussels who think, well, with a history background or with another background, you're not involved or something. So maybe the discussions comes from there. But I don't really mind personally whether it's STEAM or whether it's STEM. I think it's important that mathematics, engineering, technology, and that students know that they need these skills in order to be successful in the future. And that it is a good idea to combine it with all the other areas that there are there. And ICT, for instance, is also very important, which it's not in the STEM, it's not in the STEAM. So should we put another letter to it? I don't know. So I know it's a discussion. For me personally, doesn't mind, as long as we know that the STEM subjects are very important for a lot of things that we need, the students need as skills in the future.
Mr. Koch, what is your point of view concerning the A from STEM to STEAM? How did the A enter this concept in your opinion?
Well, let me step back to an experience I had as a professor in a technical university and was teaching system engineering, system construction, for example. And this was in a way, it was a STEM approach, meaning a classical approach, using all the science and technology and engineering, mathematics, etc. And at that time, I was introducing I was referring to a book from two gentlemen called Maturana and Varela, which was called The Tree of Knowledge. And this was very fascinating to me firsthand. And interestingly enough, when I was meeting my students 25 years later, and I asked them what they remember most, it was exactly this reference, and it was not the technology and not the pieces by which we build complex systems. Now, I found out that the model of, of biology, which is then reflected in technology by bionic systems, for example, was so much fascinating that because they understood that mastering complexity is the issue. Now, mastering complexity means it's more than just putting things together in a Lego style. It's more also to be innovative. And this momentum of innovativeness, this exactly makes the difference, I think, from STEM to STEAM, whatever the A is interpreted. But the point is that for the mastering the very complex issues, and we are entering a historic phase where, let's say, the so-called grand challenges like the climate change, etc., need a certain intellectual potential to handle it. There you need more than just putting things together. And this is the point I want to make in respect to the A in STEAM, that this is exactly, let's say, the thinking process which makes the difference.
Thank you. Mr. Da Santo, what are the skills needed to support a real STEAM approach?
So first of all, thank you for having me and HP joining this forum today. And thank you also for the contribution from the previous panelist. The STEAM approach is, I would say, very wide, and you can actually approach from different angles. I would take the approach from more on the business and skills side, because I believe that's an important one. Ultimately, all our effort in training, in vocational training, in learning and teaching as well, it's as well focused on skills and skills for the future. And I would say there are two blocks of skills which I would consider as really important. The first one is the approach on problem solving and making sure that this trying to find creative way for resolving a solution, a science issue, or a simply practical problem that you need to tackle. It's one important area of skills. The second one is for sure collaboration and communication, especially today. Think about this remote conference we are having today, and all the schools were working remotely. So the collaboration and cooperation remotely and face-to-face is another important one. And overall, if you take the famous A in STEAM, I would also try to focus on what is an important one for me, which is empathy. Try to understand the other whenever you are discussing on technical or science or even kind of social matters, especially in these days where empathy and understanding the other is a key important trait when you want to kind of help the community of learners you're in. So the sum of the three, in my opinion, are really the key important ones. So collaboration, problem solving, and empathy. And this is probably a good area that covers both primary and secondary school, but as well when you move up to university. So it's a good mix of the three, in my opinion.
Great. Mrs. Van Geisel, you as a woman chose the STEAM education when it is even dominated by men. Can you share your experiences with us in that context?
Yes, I can. Since I was a kid, I couldn't keep still, and I always wanted to know how things function. So that's why I took things apart. It fascinated me, and it still does. But all my friends in primary school went to a different high school, but I wanted to follow my passion. So that's why I chose a technical study, and in 2012, I graduated with a degree in electromechanics. I was the only girl in my class. Sometimes I wish that there were other girls in my class that I could talk to about stuff like makeup or love problems, mainly because the boys in my class weren't very interested in these things. So one day we had to present our thesis to our classmates' parents. it turned out that the moms were very concerned about me. They were afraid that their sons wouldn't behave, but luckily they were wrong. And the boys, their sons, were very kind to me. I was like one of the boys. So when I went to college, I studied engineering. And only 5 out of the 150 students were girls. But engineering wasn't my calling, so I changed my studies to become a teacher in mechanics and electricity. And once again, I was the only girl in my class. I graduated 3 years ago. In Flanders, in 2012, when I graduated in high school, only 1% in the electromechanics were girls. In industrial science, only 4. Last school year, in electromechanics, this went up to 2%, and in industrial science, it went up to 6.5%. So in the last years, there hasn't been a big change. Because of the low amount of girls I had encountered in my classes, I decided to make a study about the numbers of girls in vocational education studies and the reason behind it. So for this research, I asked 2,000 students and 150 teachers why they think girls do not choose a technical study. And these are the top 3 answers I get. Number 1, some girls are not interested in these studies. And I'm like, okay, I can understand that because everyone has a different passion, and that's good. Number 2, the parents do not allow it. So the parents do not allow it. Why do parents do that? Because as a parent, don't you want to see your child happy? So why do you keep her away from her passion? I can understand that the parents are afraid of the unknown because not many girls do a STEM study. And some of the parents think that the boys will eat their daughter, but that's not true because look at me, I'm still alive. So I was very lucky that my parents supported me in my decision to do a STEM study. Number 3, some girls are afraid of other people's reaction. A few girls do not do a technical course because they do not like the gossip or the questions such as, why did you pick that course? Isn't that for boys? And I get that because I get that question many times and I'm like, why can't I do that course? I'm a woman, so I can do that. It's not only for boys. But also some girls are afraid that some of her friends may ditch her because she does something different than all the rest. So that's why when I saw the outcome of my research, I contacted the Minister of Education because we need to do something about this. And that's how I became the first STEM ambassador of Flanders. And as an ambassador, I promote vocational education because it's a study for girls and boys. And I want to become a role model, to share my story with other people. In my high school, we have 1,000 students, but we only have 25 girls. I'm also the only female teacher in mechanics, but we also have a female teacher in electricity. And that's kind of unique in Belgium to have multiple female technical teachers. When I was looking for a job, most people had a hard time believing that I was a teacher in mechanics and I had a degree in electromechanics. Why? Because I wasn't a boy. And I was shocked to hear that because in my opinion, everyone can do every job because jobs don't have a gender.
So
my
right.
experience is good, but that it can be better.
How can we change that? How can we change that in the mind of the people? And maybe because you said you felt pressure from other people saying, why do you study that? Why is this question still existing?
It's because of the gender stereotypes, and it begins early at birth. It begins because we have the birth cards, and it's always blue or green for the boys and pink or purple for the girls. And then you have toys. The packaging is also red or purple or pink for the girls and blue or green for the boys. So we divide these toys without being aware of it. And you can see it at toy shops. So we have to do a lot to change that. So we can start with making unisex packaging and put dolls next to cars and trains so that a child can choose any toy he or she wants without link to gender.
So we have to start earlier by changing that in the minds of everybody, of the parents, of the grandparents, of teachers, and so on. But what is, in your opinion, a solution for that problem, for encouraging girls to study?
We don't have to make a difference between girls and boys because they can learn from each other. But in primary school, we have a day called Professions Day, where the parents can show what kind of job they do. And in my time, it was a female nurse and a male military, but why not a female firefighter or a male hairdresser? We must give our children role models, someone they can look up to. And an example, Ada Lovelace is the first computer programmer, or Stephanie Kolek invented the fabric of bulletproof vests. When I was little, I didn't know there were female inventors because my teachers always talked about the male inventors. There are also books like Mechanica, it's a Cinderella story about a girl that is an inventor, or Tech Girls Are Superheroes, that's a comic book that's about female heroes at night, but during the day they have a technical job. We also have movies like Wonder Woman, Hidden Fighters. We can also give more information to the parents, what STEAM studies offer and what uses they have in the future. And that the studies are also for girls and not only for boys. And we can do that to also to make every technical school girl-friendly. Why? Because in Belgium, not every school has a female toilet or a female changing room. And once the parents see this, they will not send their daughter to that school. And then we can also organize introduction days so that the boys and girls that are interested in a technical study can see for themselves what the course is like, how the school is, how the students are, and maybe they can make something during that time so they can show that at home to their parents. And then we have to do more internships with companies because students learn extra skills and learn about their future possibilities at that company. We have only an internship in the 6th year, but why not in the 5th year? So that they have 2 years of internships. I teach my students the basic skill of mechanics. So their first workpiece this year was a name tag. And as a guideline, I gave them a technical drawing. However, the aesthetics, they can adjust it. Why? I want that the students find their workpiece beautiful, and I don't matter. If I don't like it, it doesn't matter because it's his or her workpiece. And some of my coworkers don't allow this kind of freedom, and I think that's a shame. Another example, I also teach my students the basic skill of a lathe and a milling machine. And as a project this year, they have to make a bicycle. But they can choose any bicycle they want to make. They only have to show us a picture what they want to create. And after my approval, they just have to make a technical drawing. And after that, they can just start making it. Last school year, some students made a tractor, a racing car, a truck, a monster truck, a military vessel, and etc. And the students are very proud of themselves. And if students are proud and excited about something they made, then I'm a very happy teacher. That's all I want, that my students are happy to be in my class and to be happy that they teach something, they learn something.
Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, Mrs. Van Geisel. A very important thing to cope with. Thank you very much. Mrs. Boots, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a great shift towards digital means of delivering education. What are the highest priorities for education providers in relation to this shift?
Well, I think what we see now is that not all schools and not all teachers are ready for this digital shift. So I think one of the things we should do, and maybe that also is something in relation to what Lisa Locke just said, because her personal experiences is something which we try to tackle in a more structural way, is that we have to professionalize teachers. Usually teachers, they do their subject very well, but they're not used to use ICT, for instance, or to make students enthusiastic for STEM. And I think what we try to do is with the STEM subjects, we always try to make sure there's more context given to STEM education. And we basically, or usually do that with tech companies or other companies. And so I think for this companies also like HP can do something very useful for schools and especially for teachers. So they become more experienced with the use of digital skills, digital literacy, so in a digital education. And I think we should do this in a more structural way. So, because otherwise some groups will lag behind and will not be able to keep up with the changes we are now going through. So STEM and especially ICT can be a big support to cover this, to cope with this crisis at the moment, and also teach more STEM related subjects. And I think in that way we can make a lot of more young people ready proof for the future. But what we always try to do is make sure that schools, education and companies work better and more together, and that the government is also supporting this. We call it the triple helix. So these three actors are very important, and they should work together in order to get more in contact with children on the STEM approach. Maybe HP Paolo Del Santo can say something about it, because I think companies like he is representing are very important in this.
Mm-hmm. Did you mention now that, sorry?
No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
You can add something. I'm happy about that. Please, this is your stage.
No, I mean, I like the two topics there. One on the role models, on female and women role model. That's an interesting one, because what we normally observe is that I'm covering a very wide kind of territory, including the traditional Western Europe, but as well Africa. And we do see the role of women and girls very, very important, not just because they are the ones who are normally, in some way more adaptive, and they bring also more responsibility. So making sure they have a right role model about science and technology is a very, very important one. And the other comment, and I brought it down, about teachers and scaling, because that's the other portion. HP as we are, of course, a for-profit organization, but we have an HP Foundation, which is a non-profit arm. It was founded by our two founders in the 50s. And one of these areas is especially training and learning. And we have an online platform called HP Life. And this training platform is as well focused for all learners, but teachers have a very, very important one on use of technology. I mean, we are not advocating the use of technology just to place something in a classroom, but actually the effective use of technology with a learning outcome. And then, of course, linked to the SDG 4, where HP has also made a pledge. So I think the scaling on skills on girls and women, on technical and science topic, and the teachers focus. And let's also remember very clearly that kind of composition of teachers, the female portion, a mix, is normally very high. So they could also be the role model for their students. The collaboration with private and public, that's also the other important area where HP has been also very active, both with United Nations organization, but also with others. So the overall message is very close to our mission overall, and also collaborating locally with organizations, not just organizations like UN Women or something which runs locally. That's also very, very important. So more than open to see and to explore together. And last is, the interesting point is the discussion about Belgium. We are not discussing about difficult other environments. in Belgium, you still see this kind of limit about girls learning science and STEAM. So I think there is a lot of other areas where we can increase and improve this visibility across Europe and the wider Middle East and Africa as well. So very interesting and very relevant today.
Mr. Da Santo, oh yes, Mr. Koch, please add something. Thank you.
A very short secondment what has been said before, because evidently Lieselot raised a discussion which is very important and very interesting. I have been running a software company for many years, which I had founded. And just to report that the first insight I got was when the balance of gender was more or less 50-50. The company was in a perfect state in terms of the culture of the company and the corporation. Second, maybe this is an argument to Lieselot and you, that the profile of cooperators in a company like a software company, which I ran, or a system engineering company, you could say, is not just only that you need a technical background. Most of the work is, you apply methodologies like, let's say, the product cycle technologies, or anyway, what I want to say is that the communication between those who create systems needs another quality and another ability, namely to get people in discussion, to get people in communication. And I found out that when you have girls or ladies in the team, this works much, much better, because they can apply their ability of interpersonal communication and increase in fantasy, increase in having new ideas and innovation, etc. So what I want to say is, if you want to go for an advertisement for getting female employees, you shouldn't address that you are looking for blue collar or that type of people, rather than the ones who have a qualification in just these fields which are urgently needed in order to create good systems.
Thank you. Mr. Koch, one more question that I'd like to hand over to you. Could you share your experimental experience with us, or are you planning to have an experimental experience in order to introduce STEAM in an, let's say, educational landscape?
Well, there you address another experience. I am currently heading, it's called Multiversity. It's a discourse platform which is located in Tenerife. So this might sound like a specific case, but if you are looking to the geography of the Canary Islands, being very close to Africa, we developed the ideas over the last years on if this geographical position could be used in order to have a long-term strategy for educating not only the people living there, rather than those people living in the African continent. And so we started in cooperation with Festo, Didactic, a project on spot, which was more or less introducing STEAM, or first-hand STEM. And we are now in the process in turning it into STEAM with teachers and professors at the university, as well as in high schools in this place. What is the strategic idea behind that? To educate people which can educate other people. So we will, and that is decided, invite African professors, teachers, to come to our place in order to learn about STEAM. What we did is we introduced STEAM by using the educational sets of Festo, the bionic sets, and we ran workshops, or one specific big workshop with some 25 professors. And and this was also another experience that they liked to play with these things. They really enjoyed it. Now, I think the motivation was very high. Sorry, we are desperate because of the COVID situation, and we had an interrupt since that event over many months now, and we are restarting the whole thing. And the restart currently, and if you're interested in looking it up, I can send you access information, we call for an ideas workshop. Why this? If you are looking to places like the Canary Islands, you will discover that the economic situation there is an absolute disaster. They have more or less reduced their economy from where they live at 80% from tourism to zero. It's just recovering a little bit, but the situation of the old normal will never be the new normal. Now, so we are interested in knowing what is the perspective of the young generation. So we launched a call very recently, it's still ongoing, in cooperation with Lesser Didactic, in hopefully earning ideas from a young generation, from students, how they imagine how the future could be. Because places like this, they cannot continue in the old mode. And there, the hope is that the fantasy, which is behind STEAM, could open up some kind of ideas with young people, how their future could be designed. So that is a little bit of experience. If you'd like to know more, I could tell you a lot of stories about that.
Thank you. Maybe if we have some more time, I will come back to that. I would love to hear the experiences too of Mr. Dal Santo. You just mentioned the public and private sector collaborations in skills development. Could you give us more examples for that?
Sure. Connecting back to what Gunther was saying, HP has a long-standing collaboration with a lot of UN organizations and governments. And one of these initiatives, so we're working with UNIDO, which is the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and together as well with Festo and others, we have developed a project, for example, which is called Mashroi, which is my project in Tunisia, which is exactly in training and helping the young entrepreneur to build up their own business. And it goes exactly in that area. So it's not just the theoretical generic skills, but it goes into areas like developing your business plan, your marketing activities. How do you get funds? How do you prepare your online visibility? And that's a good example of collaboration with organizations which are fully non-profit and as well local entrepreneur. On the same time, if I take another continent, we have signed what is called a memorandum of understanding with the African Union. And all these activities are targeted at training and helping teachers and local institutions on the use of technology in the classroom. It covers both primary and secondary, and as well on higher education. I just want, instead of just listing this kind of activities, and I will put the links on the YouTube, I think the most important topic for me is there is synergies possibly between the private sector and the public governments and non-profit and UN organizations, because one, there are common goals, and ultimately both society benefits and helps this, so following the SDG goals, but as well there is a possibility of scaling, which is much bigger, but with very, very strong regulations and rules in place, which help private business. This is a full end-to-end approach. If we have the right skills at schools, the right training, the right organization, locally, who knows how this is done? It's not just the language, it's the way this is shared. Why in a classroom there are only boys coming and not girls? How can we influence them? Ultimately, a workforce which will come into the job market, which will be ultimately somebody who starts up their business, will benefit back as well private companies. So HP really looks at this end-to-end holistically from both sustainability and people and planet at the end. So it's wide, and we try really to involve local players. So I really like the project in the Canaries. And of course we have I like the Belgium one with a kind of role model of kind of technical and STEAM one. And I'm sure there will be interesting collaboration in the future together, for sure.
Thank you. Mrs. Boots, let's focus on the new Digital Education Action Plan that the USM Coalition has rolled out. Can you tell us more about the primary priorities and its objectives?
Well, the digital plan is not actually our plan, it's a plan of the European Commission, but the Commission asked the European STEM platform to have a role in that. because we are already have platforms in all the countries, and also more regional and more locally. As also Mr. Del Santo said, you really have to be locally or regionally and work at this from the bottom up, because that's where the people have to do it. And the schools already have to take care of a lot of subjects, and STEM is usually a subject they do not find very easily. So then it's very useful that public and private can cooperate and work together, and that is exactly what we do. So our role is to make sure that the goals of the European Commission on the digital agenda comes to schools and the partnerships in the regions with companies quicker, because nobody reads those big reports. And we really try to bring them into action. What can you do to improve on the digital skills? What kinds of good practices are there? How can you cooperate with companies or other partners? Do we have good role model approaches? Because we know that this is working. We share a lot of research that we do in all of our countries, and we share them among each other. So we do the good things and the right things that are really helping this issue. And for instance, there are a lot of, has been done a lot of research on how we could interest girls. For instance, role models is a good example. Make sure that they have a better idea of future jobs. I think most children in schools and their parents and also the teachers have no idea what kind of interesting jobs there are at HP. And now I call HP all the time, but the same goes for a lot of other big companies. And also, what are the jobs at the SMEs, at the smaller companies? People usually don't find that very attractive because they have no idea. And we found in our research that one of the most important things that children do not choose STEM or STEAM is they have no idea of the jobs. What kind of job, what am I going to do in the future with it? And so that's why it's so important that companies and schools together with government, locally and regional, are working and cooperating together. And we can do that everywhere in Europe. And you see now where the regions with the older industries are now changing towards a digital agenda. And in this way, in these regions, it's extra more important to have the policies of the European Commission there very quickly. And since we are a platform and a network of cooperating organizations already, hopefully we can start quicker and move faster with this digital agenda. And that's the role also in communication that we have.
Thank you. I just received another question for you, Mrs. Boots, from our audience. So perfect. Is PTVT open to collaborate with private companies from the UK to increase motivation in students to learn STEM? Just arrived.
Well, we do have a UK partner, since we are also working together with the European Commission. In the UK, people don't want to be part of our Europe anymore. We have to discuss what's possible, but of course we can always exchange ideas and work together. Actually, we do already work together with UK organizations and also companies, and a lot of companies, of course, are not only UK but are very worldwide maybe. So we're happy to work together and have a talk, and maybe just send us an email and we can get in touch. I'll be happy to.
Great, next connection, perfect.
Yes.
Mr. Koch, technology is moving faster. We have to upskill the workforce for Industry 4.0. Why do you think technical and vocational education and training plays an important and significant role?
Well, if I take STEAM as a synonym for, let's say, this kind of competences which we need in the future, I would like to start with again with a little anecdote. When I brought my car to the workshop for repair, the workshop owner, we were talking about apprenticeship and apprentices to be attracted to his business. And he says his big problem is he doesn't need people who know how to use a screwdriver and things like that. He needs people who are able to plug their laptop into the diagnosis plug of the car and interpret what they can read on the screen. What I'm saying is that we are in a situation that I think industry as a whole is getting in small pieces, but nevertheless in a kind of a situation where things are getting immaterialized. Say, We need people in the future who have a certain ability to think abstract, to cope with complex situations, etc. And this is an ability which needs to be developed as early as possible. Meaning I'm confident because young people, meaning children, already start with games on computers. So they start to have a reflection on reality where they can differentiate between what is virtual and what is real. But I think that is an important aspect in future abilities. Why this? Because more and more workplaces will shift from, let's say, the real handcraft type of work towards that, what I said, the abstract and immaterial situation. Just think about in industry about what is called the digital twin, for example. You can completely develop a complex system on your computer before you install it in reality. But this kind of making this kind of competence development between reality and virtuality, that is something which we will likely see also in developing in situations, as I mentioned before, and Paolo also mentioned, in places which look to be underdeveloped, but in reality, if you take that historical example of, let's say, the telephone infrastructure in Africa, they made a leap jump from, let's say, having nothing towards the mobile telephones, for example. And I think we should be optimistic that this type of development will also happen in places which today look to be underdeveloped, but nevertheless, the basic ability, and that is the point I want to make, is abstract thinking and complex and mastering complex situations. That is the ability which you can't develop as early as possible.
Mr. Dal Santo, it seems that you want to add something. You're nodding. You agree?
Yeah, I do agree with the description, and I like the concept of looking at possible expansion in territories, in areas where we historically believe maybe infrastructure to provide this type of remote training or technical training are not there. But I have two interesting examples. It's one, connectivity speed that will allow, for example, now remote training. So we have a large part of the north part of UK, we have lower connectivity than any Central African country. So geographically and history there, it's less connected. And at the same time, other organizations like UNIDO again have created some training center. It's called LKDF. It's learning and facility trainings across Africa to teach skills which are normally, most of the time, for example, dedicated to only male, and there are females. So it's about technical skill with Volvo, Scania, big earth moving machines. And in that cases, you have the perfect example because you have the full connectivity, you have an audience who needs that type of skills, even the employer are looking for that type of skills, and you can remotely training with virtual reality, augmented reality. I like the discussion on digital twins, remotely with a teacher, an experienced teacher maybe sitting in Belgium and teaching these students remotely, but being part of the same place. In that case, the infrastructure, the connectivity, the technology layer, it's the same. So it's really down to the policy definition and the objectives of development that a specific country or a region or even a city. We have heard some videos about Helsinki trying to develop as the digital hub or digital city for Europe. So it's really down to each community, city, and government really to push through. And I mean, the contribution for everyone, private and public and non-profit, can really makes a big difference. So it's a great introduction of any future work that could be done. Absolutely.
Thank you. I would like to hand over one last question to all of you. Mrs. van Geisel, maybe we start. What is your most urgent development you want to see in the new normal? Oh, we can't hear you.
I think I want to see more women, ladies at STEM jobs. In my school, we have in 3 years come from 11 girls to 25, but I want to see that in the future to 50, to 100, to 200, 500, because companies and we need more ladies at technical jobs, because they have also talent that we can use. So I hope that we can see more ladies at the technical jobs.
Great. Mrs. Boots, what's the most urgent development for the new normal?
Well, in our situation, we have been quite successful to have more students in STEM in higher education, but still in vocational education, it's still a challenge. Also, the girls lag a lot behind there. So more STEM students or STEAM students in vocational education, and I think public-private partnerships there are very important. So that's where we focus on.
Mr. Dal Santo, what are your thoughts? Can you share them with us?
I think the key outcome of what we discussed today, at least on my side, it's we need a wider collaboration. I mean, historically, private and public companies, profit and non-profit, were considered like two opposite sides and with kind of different directions. The picture has changed for not just for HP, of course I'm happy to represent today, but all the biggest player in the IT and in other sectors. So this strong collaboration is there. Most of the time, private companies are not expert in that areas. They might master in their own business, their own areas. So I would say collaboration between private and public, and also bringing visibility about local needs, which ultimately will benefit us. So it's really, I will really stress again on collaboration and working together openly, sometimes only to make a connection. Sometimes that's also my role. It's enabling connections between different entities, company or private companies, not even having HP contributing directly or participating, but that's also my role as a connector between these two worlds. So I think this is the most important thing I would take out from the call today and the conference.
Thank you. Mr. Koch, what do we need to manage post-pandemic change?
Well, I think the new normal will certainly not be the old normal, and we even don't know how long it will take until we have a new situation. When I take the example which I mentioned before, and Paolo also has taken on the, let's say, less developed parts of the world, I would say that infrastructures of cooperation, which are virtual and digital, are certainly taking much more space and much more place than ever before. We are just now sitting together in a setting of 5 people through a conference, virtual conference system, which is an example. I'm exercising with other people some virtual settings where you can, let's say, meet together by representations of avatars, meaning representations of real people by virtual or by artificial people. I'm not saying that I'm looking for, let's say, a good, the bright future in technology. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this will happen anyway. The infrastructures of this type will emerge. What we need in these new infrastructures is a new way of how to cooperate and how to maintain that human and personal interchange as we try now, which and certainly we experience now that this is not the best way to do it. We rather would have better met in Bern in Switzerland in a personal way. But as I said, there's in my perspective, we need to have that hybrid situation where we need to meet sometimes, because personal meetings are very, very important, because you get much more information of a person by body language, mimics, etc. But you also have to see forward that the world will become different. And also, and this is the point I want to make again and again, that for underdeveloped parts of the world, this is a big opportunity to get entered in the business which we are accustomed to, and we in the high developed area are exercising day by day. We need to get these people embarking on our way of doing business.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this interesting panel. Thanks for sharing your experiences, your thoughts with us, with our audience. Thanks for being part of Future Talk 2020. All the best to you. And hopefully till next time, all together on one live event. That would be my wish. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, bye-bye.
I'd like to hand over to our CEO from World IDEC Association for some closing remarks. Time flies. We're already at the end of today's event of our Future Talk 2020 Day 1, and I hand over to Danny Gauch.
Well, a big thank you to Doro for the moderation, and a big thank you to all the participants who have given us their insight and answered our critical questions, but also those from the public. We believe that today's sessions have definitely proven that there is much room for discussion, and that in such a short time you can really only scratch the surface, and actually you can't even make a little dent. However, we do expect that the discussions will now continue, the dialogues will continue, and if I could just throw out some of the points which I've taken out of this, STEM and STEAM can be brought in conjunction with almost everything of life, almost every aspect of life. There's a relationship between science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and if I take some words which I would believe are also a quintessence of today, I think empathy, understanding, inclusion, those are also some things which I will be taking home. But going back now to the individual presentations and speeches, I would like to say, for example, UNESCO, what I took out of it, out of his 4 key aspects which he would like, number 2, really left a mark with me, saying we have to make good use of formal and informal education to allow failure. To be honest, if I look back to my days when I was growing up, not that I'm old, but those were the days, I think things which really remained in my mind were when I made mistakes, because I never wanted to make the mistakes again. So I think this is definitely one of the points which can be followed up with, and I think there are good opportunities within STEAM to provide such a potential. Then if we look at the futurist, Gerd Leonhardt, he said clearly with his one diagram that just stayed in my head, where you would see the past, the present, and the future. We have to learn from the past. We have to analyze and measure where we are for the present in order to set milestones for the future and where we want to go. I think STEAM at an early stage strongly helps to open one's mind and understand the interdependencies which enable a sound out-of-the-box thinking. If we take Georg Fischer, Peter Ziswiler, he brought forward that people are at the center of everything, also for a company. And Georg Fischer has this mindset, and the more companies that do this, the better. Continuous learning enables agility in adapting to new challenges. STEAM enables adapting to new challenges. The statement that Georg Fischer continuously reinvent themselves is proven and underlined by this. In my opinion, STEAM at an early phase enables the workforce for precisely that. If we look at the panel, Early Exposure to STEAM Education, Mr. Hess brought forward that innovative solutions require open minds, creativity in conjunction with understanding of interdependabilities. These aspects are definitely something which STEAM can bring forward in a person. The understanding is important, so underlines for me the importance of STEAM. Alexis Georgiopoulos, I'm so sorry for that. Art is important aspect for out-of-the-box thinking, also underlines again everything we've said until now. Then we have Mr. Taha Bawa, exposure of innovative concepts through their website for everyone to be able to access and gather experiences. Here we're talking again about getting experiences. But the biggest challenge is to get the information out there and make it available. Then Mrs. Denise Amiot from Canada brought forward the green education approach that, for example, innovative approaches to include communities in building this understanding. That's also an innovative approach to get the community involved in the education and get an understanding for the people at an early stage. Which brings me to one point, very interesting, was that Mrs. Amiot is looking to get together with Mr. Bawa, and that connection is what underlines, and this is perhaps a little bit of advertisement for WorldEDAC, underlines what WorldEDAC is trying to achieve for everybody. We would like to bring education together. So the connection between them has already happened, and that's very positive for us for today. From panel 2, we have the STEAM in the era of digitalization and post-pandemic. From Beatrice Boots, I took over. It doesn't matter if it's in the descriptor A, arts, or not, as long as the whole concepts are integrated. I think this is an important aspect as well. Then from Günter Koch, I made the point of mastering complex issues need certain intellectual processes and capabilities, which is absolutely true. A helps precisely in these processes. Paulo del Santo said that collaboration and cooperation is an important aspect. We believe that this can also be improved through the arts. Arts is communication, it's an expression. So that will definitely also bring forward opportunities. And finally, his 3 points were collaboration, problem solving, and understanding, that's the key point. And this should definitely be part of the aspect of STEAM. Lieselot van Giesel brought forward the importance of STEAM to be taught in school in order to provide the same to all in the same way, regardless of their heritage or gender, which might hinder their participation. And this is absolutely an aspect and underlines the fact that this should be taken up in the education at schools, because there are cultural hindrances, there are personal hindrances, as she brought forward. Females do not necessarily enjoy or are not seen in technical jobs. But is this really the future? We have to think about this and make everything gender neutral, in my opinion. Before I hand back over to Doro Gelmar, I'd like to remind you that we would like to continue this dialogue and therefore ask you to stay in touch with us either via futuretaught.org or worldedac.org. We are happy to continue the dialogue, bring you together with other people, other stakeholders throughout the educational field, and that's what we would like to do. Thank you very much, and have a nice evening. I hand over to Doro.
Thank you, Danny, for these closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of day 1, Future Talk 2020, live from Bern. We hope you enjoyed our panels, our talks, the insights that our experts and panelists shared with us. We have 2 more days to go. Tomorrow we will focus on green education, and on Friday we will focus on artificial intelligence. We for sure also, again, have panelists from all over the world that will join us live here in Bern or via video call, who are willing to share their insights together with us. These are the key topics for tomorrow and for Friday. And for sure, we also want, again, the interaction with all of you. So please leave your comments, your statements, and also your questions so we can interact with you. So, in our Hoover app, we have polls. We had the poll for the last days and also today, and we will now reveal the answers. So, check out the Hoover app to get all the answers and see if you were right. I'm sure you were. Now I say goodbye to all of you. Hopefully see you tomorrow for the second day of Future Talk. And we want to thank all embassies for preparing takeaway packages for all our guests here live in Bern with national specialties for taking away. So enjoy them. See you tomorrow. Stay healthy and stay tuned. Until tomorrow for Green Education. Bye-bye.
Take this away from me.